Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embodied Life Coaching Podcast. So those of you who are watching this on video will be able to see that I have not one but two guests with me this week. So I'm delighted to welcome Anna Gorga and Charlotte Williams to the podcast. So Anna and Charlotte are both coaches and they are both working with me at the moment on inside my Address and Unlock program. But the reason why I've invited them on today is because I know so many people get to a point in their lives where they're looking at the lives that they live, like the personal life that they have, the relationships they have, the business that they have, or the career that they have. And they recognize that they're in these systems and following all of these rules. And they're like, I'm not sure this is actually how I want to do my life, my career, my relationship. But they're not really sure, or they're not really sure that there is another way, or that if another way is possible for them. And you two are such great examples of really exploring and doing that work around, well, how do I want to do this in a way that feels really good for me? So can't wait to explore this theme today. So welcome. If you want to say hello and introduce yourselves a little bit. Anna, I did you first, so if you want to say hi.
Yes. So hi, everyone. So yes, my name is Anna Gorga. I'm a coach, as Louise said, and it's a pleasure to be here. I mostly work with other women in corporate, even though I do have a few male clients, but that's sort of like my passion to really work with women, because in my experience, we have very unique challenges when it comes to working in corporate environments. So I look forward to talking more about this with Louise and Charlotte.
Lovely, Anna, and welcome. Now, Charlotte, you are a returning guest, but please tell us again a little bit about you and who you are, what you do.
Well, thank you for having me back, Louise. I am Charlotte. I live a blended life in the sense of I work in a corporate part-time in a organisational development role. And I also coach mainly women. As Anna said, not purely women, but the majority of the people that come to me are women, and I really help people who feel disconnected to create lives that they love.
I love that. And I would just like to say for the men listening, go and have a coach. Like I used to work, for me, it used to be a 50-50 split. And I've noticed over time, there's like less and less men coming for the support and more women, which is fine. But also men, like you matter too. So take from that what you will. So what I'd love to explore today, and you don't both need to answer everything, but you can just really to bring into the conversation whatever you think is relevant, are I guess some of the challenges and the hurdles and the things that you've overcome, but also the positives too, that have got you to where you are now, recognizing that now isn't perfect because life never is, but like the big changes along the way. So particularly interested maybe for you, Anna, if you could talk a little bit about how you made that transition from the corporate world to deciding to become a coach.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. So for me, it was not really something I had planned that way from the beginning. It's sort of like life happened a little bit and led me here. But then, of course, making this a sustainable choice was definitely very intentional. And what can I say? I really enjoyed my days working in corporate, but there was always a sense of, when I looked at my superiors and where the career was taking me, that was not really me. And so I was open to other things. And well, long story short, with my husband, we went for an adventure in Asia. Then we had a baby and two. And I thought it would have been just a short break, but I never went back. And part of it was that I had always had an interest in personal development. And during this break, I certified as a coach. And I loved it so much. And I was like, I kind of don't want to go back. I want to keep doing this. I just need to make it possible. And that sounds like the decision is the big thing, but it's not really. For me, it wasn't. It's like, how do I make this something that's possible? That was the big shift. But I do remember when I first got certified thinking, oh, if I had known all these things back then when I was in corporate, it would have made a huge difference. And that's what motivates me still to really do this work, because I think the quality of life in corporate is amazing, and also it has very unique challenges. And so that's what I chose to focus on, just because I can relate to that so much.
Yeah, I love that. And you're so right about, like, if we'd had those tools in the past. I had a chat with a client last week, and she was getting herself a little bit worried about some stuff that she'd posted on LinkedIn and how were people going to take it. And I said to her, I said, when I was in corporate, looking at people that maybe had boundaries or like did act in a different way, I was like, I was very judgmental of them. Like, I was the first person to, like, they don't care about their work. Only I can do it as well as this. Like, nobody else really cares. Like, all these, like, quite sanctimonious. But maybe if someone had planted some of those seeds before I got to, like, full on burnout, oh, maybe this wasn't the right way, that things might have been a little bit different. So I think you're right. Like, having, the more we can have those tools in whatever phase of life we're in,
yes,
the
totally.
better I feel. Charlotte, same question, or like your version of a question. What led you to here on the work front, I guess?
On the work front. So I don't think my story is too dissimilar to kind of what some people who listen to this podcast are experiencing. But I worked very hard as a child, right? I pushed myself very hard. My script of life was, if you work hard, good things come. And it did, to a point, you know. Did well at university, launched myself into a good role, the promotions came. And then I had my daughter, and what I felt had made my life feel comfortable and successful, it was really challenging to do that with a child. The complexities of that just didn't work. And also, when I started opening my eyes to, is this it? Like, is this my script? I actually didn't want that to be my script, and I felt very passionate about rewriting that script. And I've just been very fortunate to have some amazing female role models in my career and coaches along the way. I had access to coaches very early, and it didn't have to be that way. And I think just by talking to other people and noticing other people taking different directions, there was choice. There was choice out there, and I embraced that choice. And that's how I came to be a coach. Was the disconnected piece was, life doesn't have to be disconnected. You can find connection, but there is some bravery, and it takes time to go out and do that. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and I love what you said there about choice, like, because we don't always realize that we do have a choice. Again, a client this week reached out to me. She'd got friends coming at the weekend. She said, I'm really glad that they're coming, but at the same time, she said, but now I can't have a nap, and I can't lie in the morning. And I messaged her back, and I was like, just so you know, you can have people visit and still have a nap. And you can have people visit and still lie in the morning. And sometimes we just don't realize, because we're so bound up in our rules, our systems of, like, this is how I have to do it. This is what I have to be. Without realizing, oh, but actually maybe I get to make my own rules. Like, these are the rules that I followed. They've served me to a certain point, but now what are the rules that I want to have? So something that you've both touched upon, and maybe we'll just mix it up and we'll go with you first, Charlotte, is, and obviously this is an experience I can't talk to, is the motherhood piece. Okay. So you've both, a fundamental part, it sounds like, of your changes and the decisions that you made were around, okay, well, now I have children. How do I factor this in to having the career, the life that I want? So I know you did just mention it then, Charlotte, but what difference has that made, and how have you navigated it?
I think the biggest thing that becoming a mum is a whole journey in itself. For anyone out there, I'm sure people are smiling, because you can't tell anyone who have a child what it's really like. And it's the most amazing journey, and the most wonderful journey, and the most confronting journey at the same time. It's holding a mirror up to, I've got children who have the traits that I haven't dealt with myself. As it really is about holding the mirror up to all those things that I probably didn't want to do some work on. And so for me, really, the coaching journey is it's really deep work, and I would hope positive work for my girls, in the sense of, if I don't truly love myself, then they will never truly love themselves. So that's probably going to sound very deep, but the work that we've been doing, Louise, has very much been around, for me, really figuring out those patterns that are not great for me anymore, and actually patterns that I don't want the girls to take through into their lives as well. So the women I work with, often they come to me to talk about the fact that they want to do this work because it's not always, it's going to be the impact on the next generation, and really that's why they turn up and start talking to me.
Yeah, and I think often that's actually the access way in, because we don't learn that we are valuable and our needs are valuable. And so actually just doing this work for the sake of ourselves, a lot of the time doesn't feel available. But that whole piece around, well, I'm going to be the person that breaks the cycles and breaks the patterns so that I don't pass them on for the future generation, often actually allows us to access this work. And then that takes us on that journey to, oh, hang on a minute, man. What am I trying to say? Takes us to, oh, hang on a minute. I matter. My needs matter. I can do this for me too. And then a ripple effect is that it impacts my kids. Yeah.
I think the ripple effect is so big, so powerful, and so important to figure out. So
Yeah, it resonated when you said, Charlotte, the self-love piece. For me, it's been that in that direction, but also the opposite. I think it's been actually quite interesting to notice how easier it is for me to be kind with myself after having kids, because I just notice when I talk to myself in a way that I would never talk my children to, right? So I'm like, wait a minute, like that's not kind, right? I would never talk to them this way. So why is it okay to talk to myself this way? So that's interesting. And then on also what you said is like, what are their needs and how can they thrive? And then suddenly you reflect it back on you and you understand that maybe you have been accepting things as not a choice that were actually a choice. Going back to corporate, I think it is about making our own rules, but also to me, it's sometimes when we are in organizations, we think that what we observe is just how it is and that we have to follow everything. And I think especially for women, that's my experience. I, again, like don't have so much experience coaching men, but also we've been taught that is okay to communicate in a certain way or not. And we take that on so much that then it becomes like we really feel stuck because we think there is no choice. And so a lot of the work is, and that's where the work in Address and Unlock has been so important, is the piece of learning to trust yourself and to just really connect with what is my experience. And just because someone else has a different feeling doesn't make my feeling less valid, right? So we're always used to just looking around, what does the environment expect of me? What do other people expect of me? What do they think of me? And take that as the truth. And I think through this work, especially mindset for sure, but also very much this work, it's been like, no, but wait a second, like this is my experience and it is as valid as someone else's. And then of course we might need to compromise in some environments, but for me, that has been such a key piece of just understanding, okay, like this is valid too. And therefore I can trust to challenge the environment a little bit. And many times I think it's surprising, but when people choose to experiment a bit, they notice actually they do have a lot of choice. And that's how also we can, the ripple effects, as we were saying, can be big, because then people become examples for others and you can really change teams and the vibe on a larger scale.
Yeah, I mean, like, so it's no surprise, you two know, and most people who've listened to this podcast know, so I chose to exit corporate, but it's been amazing and actually really positive for me to watch clients over the years go in and have those challenging conversations to say, I don't enjoy this role as it is right now. Actually, I'd like to change this role, or I'd like to move jobs. And they often think that they're going to have to leave or they're going to be ostracized, but more often than not, they're actually met with, okay, let's make this work. Let's figure out a way to make this work for you. And I'm not saying that is across the board, but it does happen. And I think it's so important that we talked about this on our podcast, Charlotte, but it's so important that we reinforce that message, because we can have that narrative of, I mustn't rock the boat. I mustn't do anything that might make people feel in any way not completely positive towards me. Whereas actually, when we assert ourselves, not in a ragey, conflicty way, but just in a like, this is what I want and this is why. I mean, if we can also tie in some, and this is how it positively benefits the business in the same way, right? We often get more than we realize. Yeah.
I think that's so true, Louise. And often the number of conversations I have around that is so many challenging questions of really, is this possible? And it takes time. But I see clients moving through it, right? And then coming out going, they got more than they even realized was possible. But it's not just around authenticity, it's just belief, right? There's a real belief by connecting with yourself and having love and a belief in yourself. The rest seems to just follow through for people to be able to make those conversations happen in corporate environment.
Which doesn't mean it's like dead easy a walk in the park, or it's just one conversation and it's done. Like, it can take work to get to a place where we can even feel comfortable to have those conversations in a corporate environment or any environment, but it doesn't mean it isn't possible.
Or the next job. Sometimes it's not that environment. It has to, it's a few jobs in where you build up the kind of courage and the connection with yourself. Like you say, it really does take time. But I often say it does take time, but it's worth it, right? It's reminding yourself of what's the end goal going to be. And actually, the journey is not always bad. The journey can be fun. It's we kind of set ourselves up something to think, this is going to be really, really tough. And I'm not going to say it's easy always, but it's sometimes not as I think that's something that's really addressed in a lot of pieces I've really taken into my practice, is really around kind of, if we live with some of these emotions, maybe they're not as tough as we think they are, and working through it is sometimes not as draining as we think it's going to be.
Yes, because the not seeing any choices is at least as draining as that, right? At least you have a sense of progress, even though maybe the first try doesn't go exactly as you hoped. But yes.
Yeah, exactly. So Anna, how have you navigated career change, business, family, like your children?
With a lot of self-compassion. Yeah, I mean, just to, and I think like I'm not there yet in the sense of there's always evolution and a journey, right? But I definitely feel at a point now where things are solid enough that it feels like, okay, I'm arrived at least to some degree. But yeah, so about the self-compassion, I'm like only half joking, because it takes, we also moved countries in the whole thing. So, and COVID, so it has been a lot of change for me and for my family. In many ways. And so I think just slowing it down enough to take care of myself and feel good. Like, it took me a while to get there, because at first I was like, no, let me solve all the things first and then I'll rest. But then it didn't work. So I'm like, you know what, like I might be in this for a while, so might as well feel good now. And then paradoxically, I mean, not so paradoxically, right? But it's counterintuitive, but it actually works better. And so that has been also giving myself the permission to slow down and to take it step by step, and also using all these tools to find also a sense of safety and certainty in all this uncertainty has been really valuable, right? Because with that, I think that's where the rushing comes from, right? We feel scared, we feel the uncertainty is just very unsettling, and so we want to get out of it. But like finding the ways to bring it back down to now and enjoy the present, whatever is good now, has been so helpful.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered the question, but
yeah, no, it did. Yeah. And Anna, as you're sharing that, I'm just thinking as well about, I think it'd be really useful if you could talk about that whole experience, about, because you really intentionally chose this year to slow down, to take a step back, and also to cut back what you were doing. So rather than trying to throw so much at things, you very intentionally took more time to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think you had quite surprising results in your business. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, for sure. So that's where the paradox come from, right? Because we do believe, the more hours I put into something, the more effort, the harder I work, the better the results will be.
Yeah.
And it might be true in some areas. I mean, I'm not saying that's not always the case. That's never the case. But I think especially in entrepreneurship or maybe personal relationships or like anything that is not like, I cannot think of something, but you know, not maybe something really structured and like one-to-one linear. Like it's not just a linear relationship between these are how many hours I spend in my business this week, and that's the result I get. Like it's not that simple. So you can work the same number of hours or even increase them and get not much out of it. And when you're feeling good, when you are connected with yourself and rested, the quality of the output just changes. So it's really not a linear relationship. And it sounds rational in practice, but it's really hard because we're all so used to just seeing our worth in terms of how many hours that we put in and how productive was I this week. Like it really took, actually, it was like a personal thing that happened this year where I literally like, I'm like, you know what, like I'll just do what's strictly necessary. Like I can't do more. And I took the time for myself, and then of course, what happens is that's when I get the better results in business, right? So like that was like, okay, wonderful. And so it was a bit just maybe just life leading to it, but also very intentionally. There was a time where I decided, look, I'm just gonna really focus, like the typical gratitude practices, right? Like that's why they're so powerful, but just focusing on what you already have, what is already going well, and being grateful for that and pausing enough for that and taking care of yourself did wonders. And I really like feel the lesson now, and not just on a rational level, but I'm like, yes, like I know, like it feels true now because I've lived it. So yes, my business went better once I slowed it down. So
yeah,
that's great news.
And it went a lot better, didn't it?
Yes,
like you signed a lot of clients in a short space of time.
Yes. Yeah, and it keeps going, so it's great.
Yeah, amazing. Congratulations. And I think
thank you.
It's so hard when you're in this, on the treadmill, and in this thing of need to work more and need to do more, and it's not quite going as I want it to, so I need to push harder, I need to do more, I need to do more, I need to do more. And like, so for you, you're right, so you had a life circumstance that meant you decided, or you were forced to slow down, and then you saw, oh, there might be some truth in this whole slow down to speed up business.
Yeah,
but we can never discover that until we give ourselves the opportunity to do it, which can actually require us to break through some pretty ingrained patterns of do more, be more, push. Who am I? Like, how am I valid and worthy if I'm not constantly going? So I love that you've shared that, because I think it is such a good, real example. I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, but I will often share with people the retreat that I went on last year. I got there, handed my phone in, and it got to the end of the weekend, I got my phone back, and I had 2 people reach out to want to work with me. Now, I never work with more than 10 one-to-one clients in one go. So 2 people reaching out to me in a weekend is quite a lot. And it was just such a good sign to me of it's safe to slow down. It's safe to pause. It's safe to rest. I'm pretty good at napping now, but it is so good. Charlotte, I think you have also experienced some business growth this year. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I don't think you've been killing yourself to get there either.
By the way, it's been, I think one of the lovely things about this journey is being on the journey with other people. So I've really seen that growth in Anna. It's been really lovely, working together over 6 months to kind of see that kind of going on for Anna and her business. And yeah, I think it comes back to kind of what I was talking about earlier in terms of patterns that are deeply ingrained. And one for me was very much about busyness equals worthiness. Really deep, and that comes from family systems, education systems, right? You work harder, you gain more, and actually there was some truth in that for me in my corporate experience, right? The harder I worked, the more I was promoted, and that gave me status. And then it was like, now I'm figuring out what's worthy, what's my worthiness, right? And absolutely. Do I slow down? I, as you do, Louise, I take naps. I care for myself a lot more. found things in life that bring me pure joy. So I talked about this in the last podcast, but I go to ballet once a week, and that is just my reconnected with something that I absolutely loved as a child, and I'm now doing as an adult. And also, I am finding that work is coming to me that I didn't even know existed. The less I push, the more things are coming that people are like, would you be interested in? And I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing. I'm really curious. And ending up I was at an event 2 weeks ago, just got invited to something. And in that environment, I met a few people that I'm now connected to and doing some work with. And people are showing up in my life because I think I am have more self-compassion. I am so much more self-aware. And I think hopefully that emulates through the work that I'm doing. So I've seen the real benefits by just, for me, it's slowing down, redefining what I want my life to look like, coming back to the life that I love. And I think naturally, when people want to work with you, will find you at the right time. And it's the trust that things will come.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, I pushed hard in my life, and actually I probably got closer to burnout. So just noticing actually what's good for me, and it does come back down to evidence, doesn't it? You feel comfortable when things do come to you, but it is coming. And so I really have to stop and remind myself, though, because it is so ingrained, that pattern, right? That if I have a week that is a bit slower, that I have to remind myself that I've had a good week, but it's been a different kind of week than what maybe has been in the past. And so I'm really thankful for the program for that, in terms of like-minded people with like-minded journeys, just undoing patterns that I'm just not just holding myself.
Yeah, and you both know that I don't love labels, but I think if we were going to label ourselves as a collective 3, just to throw in this group, we probably all would have fallen into the would we all agree A-type personality?
Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
people are nodding. Right. And so, but I want to say that because if you imagine yourself a few years ago listening to us talking about slowing down and self-trust and self-compassion, you'd be like, what is this nonsense that these women are on about? Okay. Because when you're in that go, 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 none of that can make sense. And so I just want people to hear, like, we were the A-types, right? Yeah. And now we're the A-types that have learned to soften. So we've still got all of those skills. Like Charlotte and Anna are building amazing businesses, they're building amazing lives, but they're just doing it on their terms, without the sacrifice, without the burnout, without the constant go, 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 and not without any of it, because we're all still human, but without so much of that negative self-talk. Right. So with that self-compassion, and I just want to draw attention to that, because wherever you are, whoever's listening to this, know that it is possible for you too. If we can do it, if we can do it, you can do it. You both, Charlotte in particular, but you both talked about then about the power of doing work in community. So obviously you are in a community with other coaches and therapists within Address and Unlock. You two are also both personal development junkies. So like, it's not the only community that you're in or the only community that you've been in. But for you, what difference does it make to be within a group of people doing similar work at the same time?
I think for me, it's also what Charlotte said, it's just finding someone who has a bit the same vibe and values as you, as what you need in the moment, right? Because as you say, like, we keep evolving, and so for me, that's been really, really valuable, just to almost give myself permission. Oh yeah, like, that's okay, right? Because I'm not the only one. So that sense of belonging, especially when you're doing something that's a bit like goes against the, I don't know, the grain maybe a little bit, because it's quite radical, right? To say like, no, I'm just gonna nap.
Yeah.
Right. That, and for me, just the example, just having a very like tangible, right? Like a role model, like it can be you, Louise, because you're leading it, but everyone else in their own way, right? So we're all, I think, like showing to the others what is possible. I think that's just so valuable, because it's so much easier to believe that you can do that too when you have someone closer to you, and not just someone you see online that you don't know, but it becomes very real. So I think a place like this, where it's one of probably the space where I felt like you can be more vulnerable and really more open, right? Because it's a smaller group, it's intentionally designed to create like the safety. It's not the case for every program, and I mean, they all have their own focus, I guess, but this is really particular in this case. And so by doing that, you see how human others are, and they still succeed, and that's very encouraging. You know, you don't need to be this like superhuman I don't know, machine to succeed. No, you can have like very, very human experiences and still be successful. So for me, that was very valuable.
Great.
I think the word that I'm going to pick out from what Anna said is belonging, right? Personal development work takes time and energy, and it can be so rewarding, and yet you do question when you're doing this work. And so it can get lonely, it can get really lonely particularly when you're working out there as an entrepreneur on your own and you're doing this work. And my experience is I am a massive believer in one-on-one coaching, but I think there's something very powerful to belonging to a group and holding space for experience. You know, even if you're not feeling exactly the same as the other person, there is something about feeling validated that's really important, and being heard. And so it's invaluable, like going through this deep work with other people, where you can say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this right now. Is this really odd? And they're going, and they go, yeah, sometimes they'll go, that is really odd. But on the whole, it is like, no, you know, your feelings are true, or we've had a similar experience, or just stick with that for a while. It's okay. It's quite comforting and allows you to travel a lot faster than I think if you did the work just one-on-one, actually on your own.
Yeah, and you said the word there, Charlotte, lonely. I think it can be lonely, and I think particularly depending on how far you take your personal development journey, it can even be lonely in the context of like the real close relationships that we're in. Like, poor guy, I'm dragging that along with me. He's doing his best. But people don't necessarily get the work that we're doing, the approaches that we're doing. And you're right, like you can start to second guess yourself. Like, am I mad? Like, because nobody else is napping, like to use a silly example. Am I mad doing this work? And just having someone to reinforce you, saying like, no, this is for your health, this is for your benefit. You know, the vast majority of people don't know how to be connected to themselves and to live a life that allows them to be truly healthy. Does make a big difference, because it almost normalizes what currently is not normal, but hopefully one day will be. Yeah. So Charlotte, you talked before about ripple effects. Now, we've focused mostly on kind of career change, business stuff so far, but I'd love it, as we kind of come into the end, if you could both touch upon the ripple effects that you have experienced from doing this work, your work, but really the ripple effects into, not necessarily like from a dress and unlock perspective, but from the perspective of bringing these changes in then to wherever you want to go with it, your personal life, your relationships, like how you are as a parent, the ripples of this work. Go. Say whatever you like.
My gosh, I go in so many different directions, Louise, because it's had the ripples are going in so many different directions for me. So maybe I touch on a bit of each, actually. So yeah. For me, and I talked about this in the last podcast, I've always lived with a low level of anxiety through my life. That a sort of student you kind of talked about, I always pushed myself extremely hard, and through the work and the tools and the unpacking the stuff that's behind me in terms of what I'm holding, in terms of patterns I have, feel calmer. I naturally feel calmer, and I've got a way to go and I've still got work to do. But I think the biggest thing that I have noticed is I can notice when that is building a lot faster than I've done before. So before it becomes a head thing, I felt it in the body, and I'm managing it. I'm managing it, which I think has good effects from everyone that touches me in my life in some way. And I think then just with clients, just doing work within the body that I had not to the level, like deep level I've experienced with you, gosh, it's having such an effect on my practice. And I think really having ripple effects with the clients I work with in terms of the longevity of their emotions, the impact it's having for them and the things that they are trying to work through in their lives. And we've talked a little bit before about my daughter, but even a recent example last week. So she's 5, she's in her first year at school, and she has a friend that is leaving at the end of the term. They're moving away from London, and she's deeply upset about that. And in my own childhood, there would have been an element of like, move through it, right? Just move through emotion. I've been working with her to say, it is okay to feel sad. You can feel that emotion. Sit with the emotion. And actually, she's 5, and after we had quite a deep 2 hours of her feeling really like, I'm going to be alone and I've got no friends, and what's this going to mean for me? Friendships is everything at 5, right? Everything. She just turned around and she said, thank you, Mummy. And I honestly, at that moment, I was like, if this is the work that I can do to help you, it's all worth it. It's really all worth it.
I love that. And I think it really touched me because I moved schools when I was 7. So I had that whole thing of like, I'm going to be on my own. I'm not going to have anyone. And no one sat me down and did what you've done. So yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Charlotte. So beautiful. And it definitely resonated with me. And I think it was very well intentioned, but the story was all, oh, don't be sad. It's okay. And like immediately putting a positive spin on things can sometimes feel a bit, so very validating and beautiful. And I can just echo what you said. Definitely feel the effect in a personal sphere. One thing that is very, very obvious to me is how much more able I am to stay present with whatever is happening. And, like maybe a conversation or an argument with my husband, where before it would be really, really easy for me to spin out of control in my head. It's like, what does this mean? And like imagine scenarios and feel completely anxious. Like it's so much easier for me to just stay present and see what's really going on. And it could be me being triggered. It could be him being triggered. I mean, just relationships, right? But when you're able to stay present, it contains it so much. And so I think we probably avoided a few arguments over the past year. So that's good. So just the quality of our relationship has really improved a lot. And then the other aspect is, yes, with clients, I mean, just me being more present, more regulated, just has an impact. And also I had actually one of my clients tell me this and said, look, just knowing you're here makes me calmer. And I've noticed that with the people that report to me, right? So it's like, it's this ripple effect, right? Because they, just one person getting coached will definitely have an impact at work, in their work environment, and in their family too. So
yeah, and the thing as well, because we've done so much work on the nervous system and healing the patterns and really getting you into a regulated place, when you show up with your clients now, you are co-regulating them.
Exactly.
And that's beautiful. I don't know if either of you want to add any more in around, we've not talked about it a lot, but we've done lots of work around like getting into the body, healing the nervous system, healing those patterns. And obviously, because you are coaches, you've learned how to do some of this stuff with your clients as well. So I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say, particularly as we sort of wrap up, in terms of how you are now helping your clients, maybe in a slightly different way than maybe you did a year ago.
Yeah, I can definitely see a big difference. I mean, I did do some emotion work before, but I think for me, the whole awareness of even just the very physical, biological aspects of the nervous system has been really important, because I think before I just didn't know. And so just adding that into the mix and really emphasizing, I guess, like emphasizing the body aspects more than I did before has been really, really impactful for sure. And I really see it resonates a lot with my clients too, right? Because they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense now. Yeah.
I think actually because I'm more self-aware of the person sitting in front of me in terms of what potentially is going on for them in their body, it just makes for a much more deep connected conversation. And actually, and this won't surprise you, Louise, but by the more I'm doing around the body with work with my clients, somatic pieces, it's just got a longer lasting effect. I think I've touched on that before. It's just, you can talk about things, you go round and round in the head, and you can explore it, and you can put experiments in place for clients to work with, but actually working through the emotions and the feelings in the body just has a much more impactful outcome for my clients.
Because what you're actually doing is healing their patterns at the root. So it's no longer about management or thought processes or different pieces. It's like, no, we've got in there and we've resolved some of this stuff. So that stuff's not there anymore. So it is a lasting effect, which is amazing. So, complete open question to finish. Is there anything that you would like to say or add that we haven't talked about on the podcast so far? There doesn't need to be. I just thought I would end with that one.
I think we covered, yes, what I had in mind. So thank you. It's been really fun and lovely.
It's been lovely to have you on. Anything else from you, Charlotte?
Can I ask you a question, Louise?
You can ask me a question.
I'm curious in terms of like what you creating this community for us to be a part of. Has it created what you were expecting? I haven't asked you the question. I'm just sort of curious, because as we're getting into the final months, has it? If you'd sort of set, if at the beginning you sort of said to yourself, "This is what I really want to get out, or I want to drive this community over 12 months," has it created that?
So I think for me, it's been lovely to watch you all grow and develop. And then one of my action points, which you'll notice is happening and has been happening at the moment, is also how do we create more of a community between the calls, within the Facebook group, within the groups, so that actually it isn't just we meet once a week and we're having a touch point, but it's also knowing, like, we don't just get to be lonely on Thursday afternoons. It's like at whatever point in time we need that support, we know there's people there to reach out. And I think that for me is the piece that I want to build out more, just really creating that sense of community. But in terms of watching you develop and resolve stuff and lean in and do this work, it's been incredible. And it's really the privilege of a lifetime for me to be able to do this work with people and to see the changes that it makes. I won't cry, but I could. I might. I mean, I nearly cried with your example about your daughter's friend, because that's so beautiful. Like, so I can see that, I can hear you talking about that. Like, so this is your life changed, it's your client's life changed, it's your daughter's life changed. It's like the ripple effects. It's just so incredible. You know, Anna talks about like the arguments avoided, that deeper connection within relationship, but also that capacity to go and have the argument. Because that's important too, to be able to say, I don't agree with this, we need to look at this, rather than be like, I can never, ever, ever have an argument with my husband, because if I do, we will get divorced and I will be alone with the children, right? It's like, no, I don't agree with this. I'm having this conversation. Like, and that's super powerful as well, because what we aren't doing is trying to get to a place where everything is perfect all the time, because it's not possible.
Yeah, that's not possible. Yeah, and it's about like how you approach things, right? It's still going to happen, but like how you approach it makes it a huge difference.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been awesome having you both on. Let people know, please, where they can find you if they would like to come and stalk you on the interwebs or have a conversation with you about doing some work together.
Yes. So for me, the place where I'm more active is LinkedIn. So if you just look for Anna Gorga, it's spelled Gorga, you should find me. So yes, that's where I hang out the most. So that's the best place.
Amazing.
Similar for myself, I am also active on LinkedIn. So Charlotte Williams, can find me there. Or you can drop me a note on my website, so charlottewilliamscoaching.co.uk. And thank you, Louise.
Amazing. And so anybody listening to this, if you head to the show notes, you'll find all of that information there as well. So just click through and have a look. So I am going to wrap up there. What I will say, this is coming out on the 13th of July. So we're about 10 days away from the next group of Address and Unlock starting. If you would like to have a conversation with me about being in the next group, there'll be something in the show notes that you can follow, or just come and find me wherever you would normally find me. All right, ladies, thank you very much. Take care of yourselves, and I will see the podcast crew next time. Bye.